Hello everybody, welcome back. It is me, your old pal Orpheus, with another adventure. Here on Orpheus Plays, we're playing Blade and Sorcery today. We're on the PC and we're in the canyon. And today, I wanted to ask you a question. Did we actually land on the moon, or was it all just propaganda? Yes, your old pal Orpheus met someone today who, well, they believe in the old lunar conspiracy thing. So anyway, we're going to talk about that as we get things going today. Hope you're doing well wherever you are today, whether it is day or night. Doesn't matter to me, as long as you're coming by and hanging out with your old pal Orpheus. Today we are playing Circle of Death. Another one of those movie-style fights. I love to play this mode here on this map. They're going to come out and they're going to try to attack me, but they only come in one at a time, so that means I can beat them up. Anyway, let's see how that goes. Let's get things started. Another wonderful day for murder here on Blade and Sorcery, and let's get things kicked off right now. Oh, I don't know. What should I use? Fire axe. Oh, geez. Oh, boy. Okay. We're already starting. Let's take care of our first traditional slow motion kill of the day. Who's gonna win? Is it gonna be... Oh, I don't know. Let's take care of you real quick. Nope. How about this? That wasn't satisfying. That wasn't satisfying at all. How about this one? Oh, no. Oh, there we go. Now with that out of the way. What I wanted to talk about today is something like I mentioned before. Apparently, there is a large contingency of people out there who apparently are growing too. Like the number of people who believe this, that the moon landing was just absolutely faked. And come on. We'll go into it in a second why this is all ridiculous. But let me just briefly kind of cover this, how this works. So, the Apollo program back in the 1960s was one that was ordered by then-President John F. Kennedy, who saw that the Russians were getting a little too ahead in the space race, and decided it was time for the United States to take some drastic measures, and so he ordered the impossible. Where did my sword go? Oh no, it's in him. So he ordered the impossible. He tasked NASA with going to the moon by the end of the 60s and landing on the moon and bringing someone back. Oh, nice shot there, bro. And bringing someone back from the moon. Safely, of course, right? So that was what is going on? That was the objective. And so America got its pants all tightened up, and we started to get to the point where we could develop this technology. And if you look at some of the technology that was developed, like they had people hand weaving the circuits, like the copper circuits. Why does that keep happening? Give me back my sword. Give me my sword. Come here. No, there we go. God, this is getting ridiculous. So NASA developed all this technology on how to send, human beings to the moon and bring them back without any incident. Well, as you probably know, they succeeded. The Apollo program did land people on the moon, and it was an amazing, inspiring moment. Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong decided to get the Eagle lander down there on the moon, and they're one of the most watched moments in history is when Neil Armstrong stepped foot on the moon for the first time. And I know that you've seen it, or at least you've heard it. It's that, the Eagle's landed, and then that's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. That is an iconic moment in history that has been viewed billions of times by people, okay? Well, here's the thing. I was at a local festival over the weekend, and it is just a little bit later in the day. I haven't gone to sleep yet, so it's still kind of late. Anyway, so here's what happened. We are there at this little event. It's a little festival they have in our town. It's kind of neat. I won't tell you what it's about, because it's kind of a rather unique festival. Anyway, so I was at the festival. We're walking around and we're enjoying the sights, right? Mrs. Orpheus and I are enjoying it. And I start hearing a guy talking to a group of people at one of the vendors. Those little events where they have vendors that come in from all over the place. So This vendor was selling, I think it was those diamond posters that you can see, you can get on Temu now, where they've got like all sorts of awesome things, but you have to make them yourself on little tiny individual crystals, right? So one of them was of the Apollo lander and Neil Armstrong stepping off of it. And this guy was having a full-on argument with the artist, saying like, you know that this is fake, right? You know that this is like, why are you perpetuating this myth? You know, if you should take this, because he had it next to like a picture of JFK that she had done, right? And had it like next to some other historical figures. I think Martin Luther King was another one that was right next to it. And this guy was demanding that he put it over. He's like, if you're going to sell that thing, you should put it over near the SpongeBob and stuff because it's complete fantasy. And I'm like, if you saw my episode on Flat Earthers, right? I have a very hard time. Okay, so let's run down why this is going to become an issue for me in the future and for this story. I have autism, and I have brain damage, and I have schizoaffective disorder, which means I have bipolar, plus I hear music all the time. Yes, if you haven't seen my other videos in my mental health playlist, I do hear music 24 hours a day, even while I'm sleeping. When I do dream very, very briefly and very rarely, I have music playing during the dreams. I remember it very clearly, and it is something that happens all the time. And so I have a little bit of an issue with my filter sometimes. Like, I have difficulty. Wow, people are just falling all over the place. What is going on? But I have difficulty like controlling. Oh, I don't know. The kind of social niceties that may seem common to you are not something that I do well with, and so I say stupid things, I blurt out things in public, I act like a kind of a jerk sometimes, when I'm also a sociopath, so that doesn't help either. I have antisocial personality disorder. So I hear this guy. And in the Flat Earther episode, I mentioned that, you know, it ended with me saying, well, you're an idiot. Okay, like, I literally told the guy at the grocery store that he was an idiot. And it was... it was funny because my wife just kind of was... She was trying beforehand to get me to not say anything. She was like, no, please don't say anything. And so I had to anyway. And so that was how that one worked out. Well, for this one, this guy's just, you know, and you know, it's complete fantasy. Did you know that we created that entire propaganda program in order to bankrupt the Russians? Okay, so we're going to start getting into some of the theories as to why this is a complete fabrication in the eyes of these idiots who think that the moon landing was fake. And here's how it goes. First of all, the biggest thing is they say that the moon landing was faked in order to bankrupt the Soviet Union. The old USSR, as it was back then. And so they say, well, we obviously saw that Russia was going to get to the moon first, because they had, look, let's be honest, they had some advancements. They had some advancements going on in space that we just didn't have at that point. Like in the early 60s, late 50s, early 60s, the Russians were doing much better than we were. Like, they did things that we still haven't done properly, like land a probe on Venus, right? The only shots that you'll get of Venus, pretty much, the well-known, are from Russia landing a probe on there. And if you know anything about Venus's environment, it is difficult because the ambient air temperature is hot enough to melt lead, and so it could be a little bit of a challenge to land a spacecraft on somewhere that has such strict environmental, limitations. So here we go. I'm watching this guy. He's arguing with this just like out of nowhere artist who really does not care. You know, this is someone who's just like, it's a weekend. They want to just make a little money for their family, and by doing these ridiculous like diamond poster painting things. And so they're, you know, this artist, she's just standing there like, what are you even talking about, man? And you can tell she's getting uncomfortable, and you can tell the people around her are getting uncomfortable, because this guy's getting loud, right? He's getting to the point where he's just like, oh, you know, we need to stop making the masses stupid with this. So, okay, back to the first reason. The United States wanted to bankrupt the Soviet Union by doing this fake space program. Okay, so the idea is that as we started showing that we were progressing with our technology and we were getting closer and closer to being able to go to the moon, it's all actually fake, and so we're not spending the money, right? We're spending the money on things that are like Hollywood productions. I'll get to in a second why that's a thing. Well, so the idea is that if we show that we're developing all this amazing technology and everything, the USSR is going to try to keep up, okay? And they're going to try to develop these same technologies, but because, you know, as the lunar conspiracists think, because they're all fake technologies and they didn't actually do anything, then it didn't matter. You just had people that were chasing after something that, you know, was impossible. So it'd be extraordinarily expensive, and it would be just ridiculous to try to make happen. And there'd be lots of death and humiliation and stuff like that. Run right at you, bro. He's like, why? Where did you get one of those? This is medieval times. Oh, God. Come here, bro. There we go. So, you know, we did this whole thing fake so that Russia would kind of get demoralized and bankrupt because, you know, honestly, the space race did kind of bankrupt them. Like, it got a little rough for them. It started the downfall that ended with Glasnost and with Mikhail Gorbachev eventually. And the USSR split up. As everyone probably knows, it turned into Russia and a whole bunch of other federated countries. But, so that's the first thing. They think that it was faked in order to make Russia look stupid and spend a lot of money that they couldn't afford. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is a little bit more simple, and it's one that, I don't know, they think is the big clincher, and it's this. That the United States did all this in order to make America proud. In order to regain what we had going on, you know, after World War II, right? Because we had a lot of scientists that came over that we used from the German forces. We brought over a lot of scientists in something called Operation Paperclip, okay? And Operation Paperclip was, they took a bunch of German scientists and they integrated them into the United States. Okay? They gave them all fake identities, and they gave them all passports and driver's licenses and social security cards and everything, and they made them into Americans. Well, they were all Americans with suspicious last names that were, you know, rather German. In a lot of cases, were rather German. But we got people like Werner von Braun. Okay, now Werner von Braun was a scientist who specialized in rockets. Get off my. There we go. He specialized in rocketry, and so he was one of the ones that, you know, supposedly helped us get to the moon because of the research that he came up with for rockets, and it eventually led to the Apollo rockets and blah 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 blah. Okay, so after World War II, America was feeling high, but that high kind of started to wane, and Americanism started to drop, in their opinion. Okay, well. So what do? You create this big, massive, you know, proud program for America to follow that makes everyone unified and, you know, gives us all a sense of togetherness and all that. Just in case there's another foe that comes along, we'll be able to fight them no problem. Okay. Well, if that's what they did, it worked. You know, America went from cowboys and Indians. I'm not using the PC term there, but that's what it was back then. They went from cowboys and Indians to spacemen. You know, there's a really good scene of it in Toy Story where what's his name? I can't remember his name. The kid that owns the toys. His wallpaper changes from, you know, the Woody stuff to the Buzz stuff. And that's kind of how it went in America. You went from, like, you know, cowboys and Davy Crockett hats and stuff to literally people playing with space, space toys, like rocket ships and astronauts and stuff like that. And it became an entire cultural phenomenon. It became a paradigm, as they say. A paradigm is a set of commonalities that a society or an ideal shares, right? And so with the space stuff, the commonality was space stuff, and so everyone was all about space. There were products that were all space-based, and, that's where you got things like astronaut ice cream that you can go buy, that crappy stuff. And, you got people going down to NASA and visiting the Kennedy Space Center, and it was all really cool. Well, here's the thing. If it was faked, then all of Americanism since the 1960s has also been fake, apparently, right? But I don't know. We're gonna get into some. Whoa, what is going on here? We got a lighthouse. It's a lighthouse. What, bro? Hey, wait, stop. Let's pick this. Let's throw this over there. Wow, that is. Wow. Okay. Anyway, so if that's what happened, it's interesting because it basically worked. Okay. Well, so where did this come from, and why did they think that it was actually such a faked thing? Well, okay. So this ties into the movie 2001. 2001 was a movie by Stanley Kubrick in the 1970s, and it was 70s, maybe 60s. Anyway, it was about a monolith that was found on the moon, and then eventually around Jupiter and all that other stuff. And well, go watch it. It's a deep space movie. It's kind of cool. It's kind of surreal and weird. But the thing about it is that the special effects in that movie are insanely good. Like, even for now, if you go back and you watch 2001 now, the scenes where they're in space and weightless and stuff, you're like, wow, that looks realistic as hell, man. And that was the problem. They used such new forms of technology and innovative ways of doing things that people just thought that it was space. They thought that they actually went up into space and filmed it. Okay. And that's what a lot of people thought. Well, unfortunately, the swing of stupid went the other way as well, and people started to go, well, if they can fake 2001 space stuff, why do we believe that they actually went to space and that they actually went up to the moon? Because the other idea is, well, the technology is good enough to fool us, right? Well, that's what Hollywood is, right? Hollywood is the technology used to fool us and entertain us. Well, that's what they figured. Well, that they thought that there was a soundstage somewhere where Stanley Kubrick was directing this and getting everyone to work a certain way and look a certain way and act a certain way, and they had him in these weightless harnesses and stuff that they put him into, and that they had him all very, very secretively filming this whole thing the whole time, and these astronauts who were apparently really just staying in a hotel or something like that. Okay, so this gets ridiculous now because you got to think about it. NASA has had over 10,000 people working for them, right? At various times. That's about the round number that they say when you watch Armageddon and they finally figure out that the asteroid is coming. You hear the character, oh boy, what is his name? Billy Bob Thornton's character say, go wake up 10,000 people, I think was what he says. What he means by that is there are literally about 10,000 people working at NASA that take care of the important projects, okay? And that means that there are 10,000 people working at the space agency who all have, over the years, been the same way, except for less than 1% outlier. And we're talking less than 1%. I mean 1/10 of 1%, right? There are so few people that come out and say this stuff. And you get people like Buzz Aldrin that are like, he's nuts, okay? He has gone literally crazy in the last decade or so. I don't even know if he's still alive. He might be. He might not be. Who knows? I think he is. I think he's the one that outlasted everybody so far. But there are tens of thousands of people that would have to keep a secret. You know how hard it is to keep a secret? You know how hard it is? It has been to keep a secret for the last, 15 years since social media started being a thing. It's impossible. You can't keep a secret anymore. Wow. It just doesn't happen. And so back then, you would have had to have more than 10,000 people keeping a secret. You would have had to have every single astronaut that went and orbited the moon. They say, well, maybe we did actually orbit the moon, but we didn't land on it. Okay, so what's the difference? One of the most frustrating things that you hear from the lunar landing crews is there were the first one that went that did not land. They were so frustrated because they said we were within feet of the lunar surface and we didn't land because they didn't think that it was safe enough. Well, there was a certain point where they just went screw it and they decided to land. And that's where Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong came in. They were known as kind of being the heavy rebels. And they were like, no, screw it, we're going to touch this baby down. Okay. So people think literally that Stanley Kubrick came along, faked the moon landing in order to, do something for the propaganda here in the United States and on the global stage. And so there we go. Well, let's bring it back to the point of the video. I met this guy who was absolutely not just convinced, right? He was willing to get into an argument in public about this assertion. And I mean, like, he was full on, you could tell, like, the blood was starting to boil in this guy. He was starting to get actually pissed because everyone around him was looking at him like he was just absolutely nuts. And again, there I am. I'm standing near it, and I'm like just kind of cocking my head to one side and listening. And Mrs. Orpheus is like, "Don't you dare!" She's like, "Don't you dare get in on this." And I had to look at her, and I said, "I love you, honey. I love you, and because I love you, I'm not going to get involved in it." Now, don't worry. There was a good group of older guys, of veteran type looking people. God, this thing is beautiful. There was an old veteran type looking group of people that just finally, when I was walking away, were starting to grill this guy like, "Oh, if it was fake, then what about this? If it was fake, then what about that?" Right? Like, how did they bring back moon samples that have been verified as moon samples? And the guy was trying to mumble stuff about how, like, the conspiracy is that we control all of that stuff anyway, and so therefore the results can be completely fabricated. And these guys were just like, when people just kind of dismiss somebody where they're like, "Okay, whatever, buddy." That's kind of what was going on as I was walking away. Anyway, have you met anyone like that in your life? Someone that thinks that the moon landing was fake? Are you someone who thinks the moon landing is fake? If so, and I mean this unironically, right? I mean this seriously. If you're someone like this, I don't know if I'm going to call you an idiot. I want you to explain it to me. Tell me in the comments why the moon landing was actually faked. And I mean, like, don't give me those quote-unquote evidence things like the photos that have weird shadows on them. We're talking about space here, folks. The lighting in space doesn't... Whoa, no! The lighting in space doesn't work the same way as it does here on Earth or in any photography that you see that's taken here on Earth. So don't bring up something about the photos. I know all that stuff. Bring up some arguments that you think will completely change my mind. Put them right there down in the comments below and we'll talk about it. Anyway, hope you're doing well today. Be good, do good, and treat yourself well because you deserve it. And we'll see you on the next one here on Orpheus Plays. Bye!